Time for another Nebraska Prep Zone report. We are sponsored today by MD West One, Nebraska's most advanced sports medicine, orthopedics, neurosurgery, and spine care, covering Greater Omaha for over 70 years. I'm your host, Jake Anderson. Joining me today, as always, well, for now, Mike Patterson, our girls basketball expert extraordinaire.
How's it going, Jake? Ready for that state tournament to start?
So that's the big thing. 5 days of girls basketball in Lincoln, Nebraska. How are you feeling for it?
I give props to the NSAA for just getting this season played and having a schedule to, it's a lot different from what we're used to as far as the more traditional Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Now it's starting on Tuesday, and coaches, a lot of times they didn't even know they were in the tournament until Friday night, Saturday morning. So not much time to prepare for it, but we're going to be ready to go on Tuesday.
And speaking of Tuesday, let's dive right in with Class A, which plays Tuesday, and then with this new bracket, doesn't play again until Friday.
Right. It's going to be interesting. To play a first round game and then to kind of sit there and go through your practice paces and everything and come back 3 days later and play. And then if you win that one, you got to turn around and play the next day. So, all the classes are just a little bit different, but, you talk to the coaches, Jake, they're just happy to be playing. They're happy to be at state. So they're going to deal with whatever little twists and turns we have this year.
Well, let's start right at the top with that number 1 seed, Lincoln Pius, the 10th. They're playing the number 8 seed, Millard North. Pius comes in undefeated, 22-0. Mustangs come in 14-9, and they're one of those teams that found out Friday, Saturday that they were in.
Talk about sweating it out, and you feel good for Millard North, but you feel bad for Papillion La Vista because those two teams tied, and it was amazing that they tied with the exact number of points. And I'm not just talking about 41. Their wild card points, but it was 41.2609. So 4 decimals after the 4 spots after the decimal. And so Millard North did squeeze in there. They thought they lost their district semifinal at home to Bellevue East, and they really thought that was probably going to be their season. But when everything shook out, they were the wild card team. So, but of course, their gift for qualifying and as the wild card is to play powerful Lincoln Pius the 10th, the first game.
And Pius, I mean, most people probably pencil them into the final, but let's not go that far ahead. What could trip them up against the Mustangs? What should they look out for here?
Well, Pius 22-0. They're the defending champs, and Millard North's task, like it's been everybody's task, trying to slow down Pius the last couple of years, is to try to figure out a way to limit their fine center, Alexis Markowski. And nobody's really been able to figure that out. They've got a really fine guard in Jillian Ashoff, who does a really nice job of not just scoring, but getting Markowski the ball. So she gets a lot of assists on that. And it's not just a 2-player show. They have other really solid players, but Millard Norris really job is to try to limit Markowski, but if they can't do that, it's probably going to be Pius onto the semifinals.
And let's talk the other side of that bracket. Lincoln Southwest, the 4 seed, will play Omaha Central, the 5 seed. Southwest comes in at 19-2. Eagles come in at 22-3. Who has the edge there?
Slight edge to Southwest because they won during the regular season by 4 points at Central, but really close game, Jake. Those 4 and 5 seeds are always really close. Southwest doesn't really have any big scorers. They're just a really solid team, play good defense. And Central, we've talked about them. They're 22-3 this year. They were 9-15 last year, so they've done a really nice job of turning things around. They've got height. They've got a good young team. Anaya Webb is their leading scorer, averaging 15. And the addition of Ania Jones, the freshman guard, averaging about 12, has really meant a lot to that team this year. So slight edge to the Silverhawks, but, if the Eagles come up with that first-round win, it would not surprise me.
Moving on to the 2-7 game, Millard South, the Patriots 23-1, Lincoln East, the Spartans 13-9. Most people, same as that 1-8 game, give the edge to the higher seed. What could Lincoln East do to pull the upset?
Well, I was down there for their district final on Thursday when they defeated Papio South, and they really caused the Titans a lot of problems with their full court press. So the problem is trying to press Millard South is very difficult, and Millard South has a full court press of their own that they get a lot of turnovers and transition points off of. So I think Lincoln East is really going to have to, their two senior guards had really nice games that night. They're just going to have to do several things to try to limit that Millard South offense, which we know is on pace to set a Class A record this year for most points averaged. I think they're averaging 71 this season, Jake. So it's going to be an uphill battle for the Spartans. I really like their coach, Dennis Pritchard. He's going to try to figure something out. I think talking to him after game the other night, he thought that them against Millard South was a little better matchup than they had against if they would have been playing Pius X that first round. So we'll see what the Spartans can come up with, but edge to Millard South right there.
And then that 3-6 game, Fremont the 3, the 6 North Platte. Before we preview the matchup, that leads to one of the interesting things with this bracket to me. North Platte, the 6 seed, if they were to win, they would hang out in Lincoln until Friday?
I haven't even thought about that, Jake. I would seriously doubt whether they would hang out in Lincoln. They would probably be making that trip back across the state and come back. They don't even play until, if they would win that first round game, they wouldn't play again until 8:30 on Friday night. So I really don't think they'd be staying in Lincoln that long. So, of course, we're putting the cart before the horse there. They'd have to win first. But, that's just kind of one of those little tweaks this year that every school has had to deal with when they looked at this schedule. What are we going to do? Are we going to stay? Are we going to go? What's our lodging plans going to be? But I'm sure North Platte would go home. But getting back to the game, Fremont Tigers 21.
Any team a W here. Tigers 21-3. North Platte comes in 16-6.
Right.
Should be a nice close matchup.
Yeah, I got to give the edge to the Tigers. They've been one of the top teams all season long. I don't think they've been ranked lower than 3, really. Another high-scoring team. They're right behind Millard South in average points. I think they're right at about 70 per game. So Tigers in quest their first title, North Platte. I think they have done a nice job of getting to state the last couple of years. Don't want to sell them short what they've done, and they take a lot of flack for their schedule maybe not being as difficult as some of the other teams, but they did beat 2 Metro Conference teams in Omaha Northwest and Bellevue East to get to state. So they are there at state. The old saying goes, anything can happen at state, but boy, I'd be really surprised if Fremont doesn't advance to that semifinal, but props to North Platte for getting there again.
Yeah, and so let's talk semifinals then into final. Expectation probably Millard South Fremont. Who would you give the edge to there?
Man, I don't even want to go out on a limb on that one, Jake. That'd be a real toss-up, and I think it'd be a real entertaining game. 2 of the highest scoring teams that we've ever seen in the state. I'd probably give the slightest of edges to Millard South. They've been so close. They made deep runs at the state tournament for the last 5 years. Fremont's been there a couple of times, but Taylor McCabe, they're a very fine player. I'd probably give the edge to the Patriots, but boy, really, really a small edge there.
And most people, as we noted earlier, are probably just going to pencil Pius straight to that final. Could you see a semifinal upset?
Well, I could see that. Southwest, like I said, they're not flashy, but they play really good defense, well coached. Central is one of those teams that you're not really sure exactly how they're going to react down there at state. It's been a few years since they've been there, but boy, when they're hitting on all cylinders, I go back to that holiday tournament game they were playing against Millard South in the final. They were ahead by 18 and they ended up losing by a couple of points. So they easily could have won that game. And, if they kind of play with a we don't have anything to lose attitude, kind of loosey-goosey down there at State, I think that they might be able to give not just Southwest problems, but who knows, maybe Pius problems too. But, just judged on what we think is going to happen, it would be a surprise if Pius didn't move on to the final again, Jake.
Okay, crystal ball time. I'm going to put you on the spot. We've seen Fremont and Pius a couple times this season, and not to, put the cart before the horse and advance to Saturday all the way, from Monday. But who has the edge of these 8 teams?
I'm going back to the top seed and the top ranked Pius, Jake. Alexis Markowski, their fine center. Nobody's been able to figure her out yet. And, she's going to go on hopefully to a really nice career at Nebraska. Her dad, Andy, of course, played at Nebraska. So edge to Pius, but like we've talked about before, there have been 5 teams that have really kind of moved off from the other ones this season. We talked about them. So Pius deserves the favorites role, but I think if any one of those other 4 teams ended up winning State, it wouldn't be a giant surprise in my mind, Jake.
Yeah. Let's move on to Class B. Before we do so, let's take a minute here for a word from our sponsor, MD West One.
As the official team doctors for high school and college teams across Greater Omaha, MD West One Sports Med Doctors can get you back into the game, stronger than ever. Meet the Sports Med team at mdwest1.com or call 402-390-4111.
Thanks again to MD West One. Now Class B, which another oddity of the 5-day tournament, they have 2 opening round games on Tuesday and 2 on Wednesday. A move which I believe was made to accommodate Scottsbluff. They're playing the Wednesday game at 11:15 and coming all the way from Western Nebraska.
Right. And they wanted to get 6 games at Pinnacle Bank Arena on that first day, Jake. So they had 4 Class A's, so they had time for 2 Class B's. Like you said, it'll be interesting because 2 of those teams going on to the semifinals will have an extra day in between, one starting on March 2nd. 2 games on March 2nd, 2 on March 3rd, those first rounders. So again, coaches don't really like to make a big deal out of it because they know if they do, then their players probably will. And they're just sort of everybody's going with flow this season.
Yeah. Well, let's dive right into the bracket, starting with those Tuesday games and kicking off the tournament, 9 a.m. at Pinnacle Bank, number 1 seed Norris, 20-2, number 8 seed Bennington, 14-10.
That number 1 ranking spot in Class B has been a real revolving door this season, Jake. And Norris is at number 1 right now. The way they played their district final, I think the Titans deserve that number 1 seed and their number 1 ranking. They'll be playing Bennington, which the Badgers did a nice job of just making the tournament. They were the only district, Class B district team to win on the road. They won at Beatrice. So really tough first rounder for the Badgers, 2 Eastern Midlands Conference teams there, but got to give the edge to Norris to move on to the semifinals.
And how's this for a 4-5 game? Omaha Skutt, 19-4, the 4 seed. The number 5, York, the Dukes, 20-3. That seems like a typical semifinal matchup that you see, 19-4, 20-3, top teams in the state.
Right. Yeah. Get those number 4s and 5s together, kind of like Class A, and I think it's going to be a really good game. Of course, the X factor with Skutt is the availability of their fine senior center, Lindsay Krause, who's been nursing a knee injury the last few weeks. And the last I had heard, her playing status is probably questionable for that first round game, but they wouldn't play again until Friday if they were able to beat York. That's kind of a big if, because that's going to be a tough game. But I think, the Skyhawks, 19-4, coached by Kip Colony, York, 20-3. They've had a really nice season too. I think that game's really a toss-up. I gave a slight edge to Skutt. I didn't really know what Krause's status was going to be for sure. I think Skutt can win even without her. They've got other weapons. CC Barons is a really fine scorer for them. So let's give a very slight edge to the Skyhawks. But boy, the Dukes winning that first round game would be no surprise at all.
And, most people, if the 5 seed did win, they'd consider it the lower seed winning. This is another one, as you noted, with the 8 seed in Class A. Really, it came down to a tiebreaker with 4 and 5 because they're tied to the fourth decimal place, 44.0870, both these teams. So
it's hard to believe you can play a whole season, Jake, and there's so many factors that go into that wild card, and to see teams tied like that is really a rarity for sure, with Millard North and Papio in Class A, where it came down to which team was going to state and which one wasn't. At least these two teams, they're both at state. Like we said, can't get any closer than that when their wild card points are the same. So really good first round game coming up on Tuesday.
Yeah, let's move to Wednesday then for Class B and the other side of the bracket. Another game to kick off the day at Pinnacle Bank, 9 a.m. And this one will bring the star power. Elkhorn North, the 2 seed, their first year as a program, not just first year in Class B, first year as a program, the 2 seed at state. Incredible accomplishment there. They'll play the 7 seed Omaha Gross, 17-6, North 18-2. And led by someone you've talked about a lot and had a nice feature of earlier this season, freshman Britt Prince.
Right. Nebraska's on her, Creighton's on her, Louisville's on her, other colleges are already on her. So she's really one of the top players in the state. I don't know what else to say about her. She's averaging 24 points, daughter of head coach Ann Prince. She can do it all. She can drive. She can hit from the outside. She's also a really good playmaker. So they have another fine scorer on their team, Riley Palmer. Other role players who know how to get those two players the ball and do their share of scoring too, Jake. So like you said, props to Elkhorn North. Not many schools can get to state in their very first year program-wise. They don't have any seniors. So Elkhorn North is there, and I guess from a fan perspective, it's nice to see a player like Britt Prince get a chance to show what she can do on the really big stage. So they'll be playing the Cougars. Omaha Gross got to state by defeating Grand Island Northwest, who was Class B's runner-up last year. So props to the Cougars, but edge here has to go to Elkhorn North to win that first rounder and advance to the semifinals.
And that other game, the 3-6, as we mentioned, the 6 seed Scotts Bluff, 11:15 on Wednesday. They'll be playing the 3 seed Crete, 21-3. Scotts Bluff coming in 18-6. Good 3-6 matchup there.
Right. Crete, the defending champ. I thought they'd be down a little bit this year. Their fine All-Stater Morgan Malley graduated. So without her, I thought that Crete might take a step back, but that's what I get for underestimating their fine coach, John Larson, who recently set the state record for career girls basketball wins. He had another nice team this year. Crete's been ranked in our top 5 pretty much all season long. Scotts Bluff, again, carrying the torch for the outstate teams. They had a nice season too, and they had a tough game against Elkhorn in their district final, and they were able to win that one. So I think the Bearcats have shown that they belong at state, but boy, that's a tough first rounder for them. And I've got to give the edge to Crete to keep it going and perhaps move on to play Elkhorn North in that semifinal.
Okay, so not to put you out on a limb here, but 2 teams that you gave the edge to, Elkhorn North, Crete. Who would you pick there?
That's a tough one because Elkhorn North is just kind of don't know what to expect from first-year program and everything and the bright lights of state. I've got to give the slight edge there to Crete. Tournament tested, like I said, defending champions last year. Larson's a great coach. I had all those wonderful teams at Lincoln Southeast before moving on to Crete. So slight edge to Crete to slip past Elkhorn North if that's the way it turns out, Jake, and move on to the final.
What about the top of the bracket there with Norris? Who can give them? Obviously, as we say, anything can happen once you get to Lincoln. But do you see anybody beating Norris?
Well, I see Norris advancing to that semifinal against, and boy, I don't know who's going to win that Scott York game. That's like I said, a toss-up, and Krause's status kind of coming into question there. But I'd give Norris a very slight edge in that semifinal. But, that Class B is, like I said, been a revolving door this year. And York played Norris during the season. They got beat. And Scott played Norris too, and they got beat. But neither game was really a blowout. So they're both competitive. I could see either one of those teams giving Norris a tough time. But we'll stick with the Titans to win that semifinal and move on to the final.
Well, we gave everybody one freebie with your pick in Class A. I would encourage everybody else to go check out your picks column, the Crystal Ball competition with Stu, where you guys pick winners of each bracket, and you obviously have the in-depth breakdowns of C1, C2, D1, D2, and all your picks there. So I don't want to give away all your picks on this podcast, but I do want to kind of jump around a little bit now. Not necessarily go class by class, but talk some top storylines here. Obviously, moving to D2, jumping to the whole other side of the bracket, Humphrey St. Francis and Allison Wiedner. If they can, Husker commit there, if they can get the title this year, what else are you keeping an eye on this year?
Well, there's a lot of great storylines in all the other classes, Jake. You mentioned D2. Let's start with that. Allison, future Husker, playing for Humphrey St. Francis, one of the only two teams that are undefeated this season, along with Pius X. St. Francis has been to the final 2 of the last 3 years. They've come up short. So I know Allison is really wanting to finish out her varsity career with a state title, trying to take it home for St. Francis. They've had a great season. The only question in my mind with St. Francis is they haven't really had a lot of close games this season, Jake. So that can really change a lot when you get to state, obviously. And, if they get put in a position where they haven't been in a really tight game down the stretch, you're never sure how that's going to play out. But I think St. Francis really deserves to be the favorite. As I've mentioned before, also making Class D2 again this year is our friends from Why Not, the Blue Devils. I pick against them pretty much every year because they come in with more losses than some of those other teams. But to their credit, they play a very tough schedule, and they just seem to be there every year. They won state last year. They beat St. Francis again, defeating my pick of St. Francis. So they're the number 6 seed, a really dangerous 6 seed. So I think that's 2 of the teams to watch. And I'll throw Fall City Sacred Heart in there too in D2. So really good.
My rule. My rule with D2. Why not pick against the Blue Devils?
They've made me look bad so many years, Jake. So I do like the way they play. They just really step it up at state. And for a Class D2 program, which of course you're not talking about a whole lot of girls playing to start with. So props to them for getting back there every year. But once again, I'm gonna pick against the Blue Devils and say that St. Francis is going to take home that title in D2.
Yeah, that 3-6 game you mentioned in D2, Chambers Wheeler Central, 6:30 at Lincoln North Star on Wednesday against Why Not. That might be one of, regardless of class, one of the top first round games.
Right, I'd agree. And Why Not's got a little more tournament experience. CWC, they've done Chambers Wheeler Central since they become that co-op. They seem to be at state every year too. But like you said, 23-1 and 19-6. That's a pretty good first rounder.
Yeah, let's move around a little bit here. What are you looking out for in Class C1?
Oh, C1, I'll tell you, Jake. I really look at a couple of classes, and this one in particular as being a real. I don't know what the heck's going to happen. Let's put it that way. There's just a lot of different storylines. We've got 2 defending champions. We've got North Bend, the defending champion in C1. We've got Hastings St. Cecilia. They won C2 last year, but they moved up a class this year. So there's that intangible. You've got Grand Island Central Catholic, which replaced its coach fairly late in the season, and coincidentally, one of its its top players, its top scorer really wasn't on the team after that. So they've regrouped, and I give them credit for getting to state after, to really kind of get it back together again after something like that. I give them a lot of credit. So they're the number one seed. So we don't know how Central Catholic's going to do. They're going to be playing Winnebago, who was the 16th seed in districts, and they went and beat Malcolm, who was the number one seed. So props to Winnebago for getting to state. That's the first time they've been there in 30 years. So we'll see what they can do. Here we go to that 4-5 game, Broken Bow and North Bend, 23-1 against 21-3. I think North Bend has the possibility to really make a deep run again. They've got a couple of Emmanuel sisters. They had 3 last year. 1 graduated. They still have 2. And they won state last year. And I think they might actually get back to the final again this year, Jake. So I probably give the edge to St. Cecilia in this class. And we'll see what happens. But it's just several storylines that I think really could be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, and another class where, if you want to circle back to wild card points, not much separates the 1 seed from the 4 seed, and the 3 and the 4 seed are tied again in points. So it as you said, not sure what'll happen. The wild card points reflect it. Let's jump over to C2 before we get to D1, which has a bunch of familiar faces. What are you looking out for in those 2 classes?
Well, let's start with C2. The team that I like to win it is Crofton. They're tournament regular. Aaron Losing has done a really nice job with that program. What I think is also working in Crofton's favor is kind of their nemesis has been Hastings St. Cecilia in recent years, and St. Cecilia moved up to C1. So Crofton won't have to deal with that team. So that's a positive for the Warriors, I think. I saw them play around Christmas time. They played Humphrey St. Francis. They got beat, but it was a good game. It could have gone either way. So, we'll take the Warriors to be the favorite in C2. But like you said, there's some notable and very familiar names, including West Point Guardian Angels, Central Catholic. They always seem to be there. So they loom as kind of a dangerous 3 seed on the other half of that bracket. BRLD, they've had some nice efforts this season. They're Wood River. Of course, we all know Wood River from where Scott Frost comes from. Bridgeport and Nebraska City Lords and another first rounder. So I think there's some good teams there in C2, but I think Crofton really stands out in my mind as the pre-tourney favorite, Jake.
And then D1, ton of familiar faces here, kind of a who's who of D1 teams the past few years. Pleasanton, Fremont, Bergen, BDS, Humphrey, Lindsay, Holy Family. What should we expect in this one?
I'll throw Hardington Cedar Catholic in there too. They always seem to be there, but Pleasanton won the state volleyball title. They were undefeated going into the tournament, and I wasn't positive. I had them ranked number 1. I wasn't positive that they could handle some of those other D1 teams just because I didn't really know if their schedule was quite what some of those other ones were, because Fremont Bergen always plays one of the toughest schedules. But Pleasanton got the job done. They've got a lot of those girls playing basketball now. They're 25-1, top seed, top ranked. So they're going in as the favorite, Jake. And I mentioned Fremont Bergen. I think they're a team that possibly might get to the final on the other half of that bracket. They play a really tough schedule, and they were in the final of the volleyball tournament. They got beat, so there's a little extra incentive for Bergen there. But I've got to give the slight edge to Pleasanton in D1.
Well, once again, I'll encourage everyone to check out your picks column, your preview, and all of the coverage throughout the tournament. They can follow you on Twitter at mpattersonowh. We'll have live updates every day throughout all 5 days. First ever 5-day tournament. I am really excited to see how this plays out. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I think it is going to be interesting. And like we said, just that little tweak to the schedule this year instead of the traditional Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So it'll be stretched out a little bit, but I'm sure it'll be 5 days of great competition leading up to 5 days of great competition next week with the boys tournament. There's going to be some fans there this year, so that's a nice thing. So bring it on. We're ready to go this week, and ready to crown 6 champions on Saturday.
Yeah, and to me, what I'm really looking forward to most is outside of other years where those smaller classes, the only chance they get to play at Pinnacle Bank and the big arenas is state final Saturday. Giving them some bigger stages will be, I think, a nice opportunity.
Right. I think so too. Everybody will be playing semifinals at Pinnacle Bank this year. So they've the lower classes have to get past those first rounders to get onto the big arena. So we'll be playing those games at Lincoln Southeast, Lincoln Southwest, and Lincoln North Star, kind of traditional. And I've actually talked to a number of the coaches from quote unquote smaller schools, and they don't mind playing in those high schools. A lot of them don't, because there's a little more familiarity with a little more what they're used to, as opposed to, okay, you're at state and now all of a sudden you're going from your very small gym in class D2 to the giant arena at Pinnacle Bank Arena. So I think a lot of those coaches might like that little bit of a transition, that first round. And then, okay, if we win that one, yes, then it's on to the big stage.
Definitely. Well, I look forward to all of your coverage throughout the week. You'll also have Stu Pospisil helping you out throughout the week, and then you guys will be tag teaming boys basketball tournament next week. I'm looking forward to it. Until next time, thanks for listening.